Welcome everyone to our monthly lunch and learn. Just going to give it a few minutes here for Zoom to log everyone in. We have a lot of folks signed up today, so this might take a few minutes, but welcome. Happy Friday, everyone. All right. The crowd is starting to join us, Jen.
That sounds great.
Well, welcome everyone. Just going to give it a minute here for Zoom to log everyone in. We do have over 60 people signed up for this webinar. And then we will get going. Give it 30 more seconds. It is Friday. People could be running late, but we have a lot to cover, so we're going to get going in just a short bit. All right, looks like the crowd's stabilized here, so we're going to go ahead and get going, everyone. Welcome to our 8th Lunch and Learn webinar for 2022. My name is Janine Burke-Wells. I'm the Executive Director of the Northeast Biosolids and Residuals Association. Everyone should be muted as you join the webinar. I'm going to keep you on mute until the end, where I can open it up for questions. There is also a Q&A function at the bottom of your screen on that big bar. Please feel free to post your questions as we're going along. And also you can use the chat function as well. I'll be keeping an eye on both of those, so feel free to put some comments in the chat. The session is being recorded, and the link to the recording will be, and the slide presentation will be sent out on Monday. So it'll be available to NEBRA members on demand if you're unable to attend. All right, so thank you for joining us today to learn about the results of the National Biosolids Data Project with a focus on the Northeast, the 6 New England states, and New York. And I'm joined today by Jennifer Lichtensteiger of NUIPIC, who collaborated with NEBRA on the surveys for those 7 states that they serve. The two of us have done this presentation a few times now, but this version's even better, I guarantee you. But let me just introduce Jen. She's an environmental engineer in NUIPIC's Division of Wastewater and On-Site Programs. She's been with NUIPIC since 2018. And she's been focusing on facilitating NUIPIC's residuals and NIPD's permit work groups and coordinating training programs for wastewater operators. Prior to NUIPIC, she worked in environmental consulting for 25 years, A+ for effort on that. She holds an MS in civil engineering from the University of New Hampshire and a BS in interdisciplinary engineering and management from Clarkson University. So we have a lot to cover. So let's get going. Jen and I will be tag teaming on this presentation, and I think I'm going to start it off. But Jen, if you want to go ahead and grab the screen.
I'm going to share my screen. Does it look okay?
It does. It looks great. All right, so this is what we're going to be talking about today, and in particular with a focus on the Northeast, the 6 New England states and New York. So let's get into it, Jen. All right, just a little background here. The first national survey was conducted collecting 2004 data that was published in 2007 and obviously very outdated. And there was a big need, and we'll talk about it, some big need for information on what's going on with biosolids in the US. So we started to work on a second survey. It was initially funded by EPA Region 4. And then we sought additional project partners, and I want to give a shout out to NACWA and WEF for major contributions to the project. But the project team included all the biosolids associations, Midwest, Northwest, California Association of Sanitation Agencies, and Biocycle magazine as well. And we looked at 2018 data in particular because we were thinking that might be a pre-PFAS impact year. And so we went ahead with this study, a comprehensive update, and looking at state regulations biosolids quality and what kind of end uses and disposal we see. And I just want to give a shout out to the biosolids community. These are all the companies and organizations that supported this effort. There's some great names on there. Thanks to all of you. We couldn't have done it without you. And now let's get into the study. I'll turn it over to Jen.
Thanks, Janine. So as you were completing the survey development phase of the National Biosolids Data Project, New EPIC was proposing a Northeast Regional Sludge Project. And our members, states, and EPA were the ones that were definitely interested in it. The project came about from the need to develop reliable, cost-effective, and sustainable long-term measures to address wastewater residuals. This issue was identified by New EPIC staff, New EPIC's commissioners, and the state biosolids coordinators that participate in the residuals work group that Janine was referring to. So this project was developed to begin to understand the short-term and the long-term stressors on the Northeast sewage sludge management system's available capacity. Several recent issues had brought to light deficiencies in wastewater sludge treatment, transportation, and disposal options. Back in the spring of 2020, the pandemic caused a significant reduction in the availability of sawdust and construction-related materials that are typically used to mix with sludge slated for landfill disposal and also for use in composting. We had planned maintenance downtime for an incinerator in the summer of 2020, and that had many facilities in multiple states scrambling to find alternate disposal options, somewhat as far as Canada and Pennsylvania for their disposal options. We saw a similar situation this past year also in Southern New England, so it's definitely continuing. And as in the Northeast states, emerging contaminants such as PFAS are showing up, facilities are left with really limited disposal options. So I want to say that New EPIC is coordinating our regional sludge project with the second National Biosolids Survey, as Janine pointed out. You'll hear us talk a couple times about a few things. We'll really hit home the collaboration. New EPIC administered the surveys in our member states, and those include all of New England and New York. And we're also performing case study comparisons in Maine and Massachusetts. Our project's funded cooperatively through contributions from our member states from the EPA Region 1 and EPA Region 2. So both the National Biosolids Data Project and New EPIC's Regional Sludge Project surveys collected 2018 data, as Janine pointed out. 2018 was chosen to provide this baseline data year before the stressors of PFAS fully exerted themselves on the wastewater management industry. The state biosolids coordinators were sent a comprehensive spreadsheet, and they were also asked to fill in an online survey to provide both quantitative and qualitative information. WRFs were sent links to an online survey. So when you hear us keep talking about the survey, it's actually 3 surveys that were sent out. And there was different data that was collected, obviously, from each of the sources that were on there as we generated the data. And I'll talk more about that as we talk about some limitations. The asterisk is for the Northeast project because 2018 sludge data was already collected under a project commissioned by the Massachusetts Clean Energy Center. We had requested 2019 data from Massachusetts facilities. We also asked Maine facilities to provide both 2018 and 2019 data to allow us to create case studies evaluating whether New England PFAS regulations and aging infrastructure have already begun impacting sludge use and disposal. So the WRF survey was broken into a set of core questions that we asked everyone to complete. And if operators had some more time, we asked some additional questions about operations, economics, and energy. And some folks filled that out. An overview of the types of information requested in the survey is presented on this slide here. Now I'm going to hand it over to Janine to talk about some of our results. Oh, you're muted, Janine. You got to unmute yourself.
Thanks, Jen. Yeah, so just backing it up a little bit, let's just take a quick look at nationally what we found from this survey. More Class A biosolids are being produced. We found a slight decrease, like 1% decrease in biosolids being incinerated. We found a lot more pressures to divert these materials from landfills, but not really a lot of change in end use there. Sadly, we across the board saw a decrease in full-time state employees that are focused on biosolids. And we'll talk about this in more detail, but we found a decrease in total solids used across the country, disposed of. And that's solids out the gate. All right, so here is a look at the biosolidsdata.org website where all of the results are. And I'm gonna just walk you through it so you can get a sense of what's there and how to access the information. So we have 53 of these little circles there on the website. That's all 50 states and the District of Columbia, American Samoa, Guam, Pacific Islands, Navajo Nation, Puerto Rico. So it's pretty comprehensive. And it's color coded. You can quickly see landfill burial is the orange. You can quickly see, looking at across the states, who's predominantly doing landfill disposal. So next slide, Jen, we'll kind of show them the different. All right, so there's basically 3 columns of information on the website for you to navigate. And the first column there is some basic state data. It'll show you that pie chart. So quick summary. It also, right there at the top, can you blow that up at all, Jen?
It's not letting me do it for right
Oh,
now.
all right.
When we present on a projector, it will. Sorry about the issue
Nope,
with.
That's all right. Or just go back there. So anyway, that first column there, it also indicates our confidence in the data from that state. So high, moderate, or low. And this, in Massachusetts' case, is high. So that's the first column there. And then the second column is what we call the dashboard, just quick demographics and information about treatment facilities and biosolids generation in that state. There's the third column is a narrative summary of the state that you can actually download, but it's really interesting. It's maybe 1 or 2 pages, quick read, and highlights all the major what's going on in that state as far as biosolids management trends. And you can see Massachusetts there is pretty equally using all 3 legs of the biosolids management stool. So you can see at a quick glance that that's more diversified than some of the other states that we'll talk about. Did you want to add something, Jen?
Yeah, I'm going to point out there's a couple of different PDFs you can download here. I'll talk about them a little later on too. So jumping in there.
All right. Oh, we could have just gone to this slide, but.
Yeah, and so that's where you can see that zoomed in a bit more with the high, as Janine pointed out, the pie chart. Yep. It's broken down a little differently than some of the pie charts I'll show you later that are a bit higher level. And then there's just great statistics and dashboard information.
Yep, and one of my favorite statistics there is biosolids used or disposed of per person. So 52 pounds per person, yes, in Massachusetts. And then this comes from the third column. And again, all of the information that's in these summaries, you can find the backup information for all of it. And you can access the dashboard and scroll through it. There's links in there. It's a wealth of information. So I would encourage you to check it out for your state.
All right, and now I'll get into some of the results that we had, both at the national level and in our region. The National Biosolids data set consists of 452 WRF survey responses with over 2 million dry US tons that were reported. And this represents 34% of the total wastewater flow in the US. Overall, there was a really good representation of different WRF sizes, types of end use and disposal, and different locations from around the country. So there were more than 6.4 million dry US tons of biosolids used or disposed in 2018. And this number is lower than the 2004 survey total, as Janine had pointed out earlier. And there are some factors that may contribute to that decrease. And those include a greater precision in collecting the 2018 data from states and corroborating it with EPA annual biosolids survey reports, potentially reducing double counting that may occur. Another factor was the extrapolation of small facility totals, which was done when there was no data collected for a facility in 2004. This approach wasn't used for the 2018 count, as trying to incorporate up to 75% of the state's average flow would really be a good count for 2018. And in 2018, there's more anaerobic digestion, which reduces the tonnage, and less alkaline stabilization, which increases the tonnage. So this figure here represents the change in end use and disposal totals between 2004 and 2018. States at the top decreased with, at the top left here, with Texas having the greatest change. And at the bottom right here is the increase, and Florida had the largest increase in totals. In the US, 54% of biosolids are beneficially reused, and 30% are sent to landfills and 15% incinerated. If we compare that to the Northeast, our percentages are kind of flipped, with the largest percentages sent to landfill or incinerators and beneficial reuse at about 20%. So after we got all this data in, especially working with Janine, as she said, we have to focus on the interesting facts and figures, and have a few key takeaways here we want to point out. The average per capita solids generated is 35 pounds per year in the US. And she pointed out Massachusetts in there, and they must lead the Northeast average, which tips the scales a little higher than the US at 49 pounds per year. And to beneficially reuse all of the biosolids in the US, we would only need to apply it to less than 1% of the nation's cropland. There's not much to report on septage management. Didn't get a lot of responses, both from the biosolids coordinators and also with the WRF study. So it's still not a lot of data, and we know we need to focus on getting information for that. Overall, New York, Massachusetts, and Connecticut have the highest contribution to the Northeast sewage sludge end use and disposal totals. And I want to note that the totals presented, once again, as Janine pointed out, are for the totals that leave the WRF gates. The sludge that's stored at facilities and placed in lagoons are not included, and this may impact the totals for some of the states in northern New England, where lagoon use is more common. These results show the geographic variation in end use and disposal in the Northeast. Rhode Island and Connecticut primarily incinerate, with some using landfills. And as we move further north, Massachusetts has the most even split among three options. As I said, this is a bit of a higher level pie chart. You can see Janine pointed out what's on the website, and it's consistent with this. New York relies heavily on landfills, with an even split for beneficial reuse and incineration. And as we head to further north, in Maine, New Hampshire, and Vermont, they're primarily focusing on beneficial reuse or landfilling. Once again, this is 2018 data, and there's some reliance on incineration in New Hampshire. The management of end-use disposal varies by region and within the country. Nationally, WRFs and haulers manage disposal equally, with fewer separate preparers. And the Northeast management breakdown is equal for all three. As we drill down into some of our states, Maine and Massachusetts are equally managed by haulers and separate preparers, with fewer managed by WRFs. And as pointed out on this slide here, some programs use more than one option. So as we're talking about what the end use and disposal is and looking at future capacity and solutions for that, we need to keep in mind that there's many different uses as you drill down into different regions. We asked each WRF to rank their top 5 biosolids management pressures from a list of 20 that we provided to them. The top 5 selected are here, and they include rising costs, nuisance issues, meaning those related to odors, truck traffic, and dust, securing long-term use options, federal or state regulations on beneficial reuse, and public involvement. And that means the concerns of neighbors, environmental groups, and others. Oops. Based on the response from the WRF surveys, there's a general interest in the Northeast. I'm going to give you a bit of a snapshot of some of our results for having a regional facility. When we asked the questions regarding involvement in hosting and anticipated use of a regional facility, we didn't include specifics about what type of treatment it would be, what the cost would be, where it would be located. So without that information, a few of the WRFs noted that they could not assess and provide their intent to use such a facility. And we're really just trying to see if there's interest as we're looking at what we can do to support finding solutions to the difficulty with the low capacity Consistently, WRFs reported capital costs, operating costs, and meeting regulatory requirement issues of importance in decisions regarding their sludge or biosolids. And managing rising costs and environmental issues regarding impacts on soils, organisms, public health, and contaminants, those are the most common pressures reported on their biosolids management program. So moving into trying to summarize some of the cost data that we received, unfortunately, these are the results from the national level. As you can see, the responses were not a very robust list. We had 4 responses for other offsite or use disposal and 49 for average contracted fees. So take that into consideration when you look at the averages here that we're presenting. We know we need to start looking at the costs. And I'll just point out that of the responses that we received, average fees range from $48 to $95 per wet ton, with incineration being the highest cost. And then what I did here is looked at those green bars up there are the costs we saw on the previous slide in blue at the national level. And superimposed on top of it, these blue triangles, they show the median for the Northeast for the cost. Once again, we didn't have a lot of responses, so just trying to give a sense of where the Northeast fits in on the national level. And our cost range per wet ton for land application, once again in 2018, and incineration and landfilling, they're consistent with the national level, a bit more varied, but consistent.
And Jen, I just want to point out that this data is already old.
And that was what we knew when we were collecting it. It was the baseline before we saw impacts that are on there. And I think that's really important as we start to move forward into discussions with this. We have this to refer back to note the changes that are there. And that's a good segue into our data limitations here. So the totals for 2018 come with caveat, with this caveat of limitations on the data. Collecting the end use and disposal of sludge in the US is difficult because multiple federal programs manage sewage sludge, Part 503 rules, Part 258 regulations, and typically several state divisions, solid waste, water, are managing it within each of the states. In addition, the amount of sludge processing and the treatment varies, resulting in different characteristics with a broad range of percent solids. And because of this, sewage sludge is tracked and reported in many different units: gallons, cubic yards, dry tons, both US and metric, and wet tons, both US and metric. Note that the totals presented are for the sludge, once again, that left the WRF gates and not sludge generated. It's difficult to track and not double count, as there may be multiple end uses, biosolids sent to another WRF for further processing. And once again, it doesn't include sludge stored at WRFs or placed in lagoon systems. And that bottom bullet there talking about the assumptions, sources, and limitations in the state summary links, that's why I focused on those links when Janine was pointing out what's on the website. If you dig down into that, you see all of that information in there and some of what we're discussing. Even with these limitations on the accuracy of totals for each state, the region, and the US, the percentages really provide a representative snapshot of their end use and disposal. So applying the data, what are we going to do next? We're really excited to collect this baseline of the wastewater solids end use and disposal for 2018. Once again, emphasizing we're 2018. And we're going to use it to assess the capacity issues in both local and regional markets. So since 2020, New EPIC Residuals Work Group has been meeting often to share knowledge amongst our member states. And those include all of New England, New York, but we have expanded beyond that. We have participation and are excited to have New Jersey, Minnesota, Michigan, South Carolina, and Washington join and discuss their approaches. New EPIC is going to use this data in our regional planning discussions with them. And I know NEBRA will too. And I have an example of that. Want to end on a positive note here that the types of discussions this data can inform. New EPIC, NEBRA, and MWEA, that's Maine Water Environment Association, are in preliminary discussions with regional, state, and municipal organizations and universities regarding establishing a regional biotechnology hub. We're calling it a biohub. And it's going to target initially researching destruction technologies for PFAS and biosolids, And the hub's goal is to bring new technologies forward, allowing for an active research, testing, and educational facility, which can serve as a technical resource for water utilities, for water regulators, water managers, and other Northeast, in the Northeast and throughout the US. Our primary function of the BioHub is going to be to research the development of PFAS treatment technology systems and to provide resources to water utility sector currently challenged by effective disposal or sludge, the effective disposal of sludge and biosolids. So with that, Janine and I are going to kind of look through the questions. Before that, are you going to throw out a few polls?
Yeah, I'm going to just throw a couple of polls out here for you guys. It's Friday. It's time to wake up. Let's see. All right. So this should be an easy one. Let's hope. Can you see that poll, Jen?
I can see it. I hope everyone else.
Good.
Hosts and panelists can't vote, so I can
All
see
right,
it, but do not
so
let me vote.
which state makes the most wastewater solids, do you think? All right. It's pretty cool. I can see live voting going on here. Just give it one more minute here. All right, we're up to 80% participated. So I'm gonna go ahead and close that. And can you see the results now? Oh, I think I can share the results.
I think you have to. I'm screen sharing, so I'm going to stop right now. Oh no, there we go. You got it.
All right, so the correct answer is California, but I threw a couple of trick ones in there for you. All right, how about one more, maybe from stop sharing. All right. Here's another one. This is coming right from the presentation. Can you see that, Jen?
Yes, I can. The largest decrease in solids out the gate. Which of the following states had the largest decrease in wastewater solids between 2004 and 2018?
Definitely worth looking into what's going on there. All right. I'm happy to see people were paying attention. We're having, I'm going to give it one more second. We're almost to 80% participation. All right. And you can see, but the correct answer is Texas, as Jen mentioned before. All right, Jen, let's see what we have for questions. All right, maybe you want to stop sharing now. All right, we did have one question. It's an excellent question. Did you capture distance to end use? The Northeast is traveling much further to outlets, and trucking is expensive, and drivers are scarce, and this all impacts costs.
We did ask questions about that. We did ask cost. We asked information on where it was going. Not many people filled it out. So although it was on there, it wasn't in the core set of questions. And that's definitely something to focus on moving forward. There is some good information by, I think, others if they started seeing that that's potential issue. So we're curious to see and be able to support that. I have a few anecdotes like I gave. We've got that to support it, and are hoping as more people come to answer that question, if we can get participation from the WRFs. And I think that there's some work going on in Maine that Janine has started to ask some questions of folks up there. If they answer that, I think that will help us to start pointing out how far folks need to go and collect additional data on that. I think when we sent the surveys out, it was during the pandemic. There was a lot going on. We kept asking folks to fill them in. There were other people asking to fill in surveys, both at the regional level, and I know Janine and Ned at the national level had a lot of difficulty getting people to fill in the surveys. And so what we're hoping from that is those additional questions like you have on there, Sheila, they're great. And hopefully building on this count, we can start asking more questions about septage too. That's really important for us to understand what's going on with that.
Yeah, thanks, Jen. And let me just take this opportunity because you mentioned his name, Ned Beecher. Want to just give him a huge shout out for his
Definitely.
persistence in sticking to this, and because it was difficult, and I think COVID had something to do with it. Although I think it was difficult in collecting 2004 data too, but we definitely got more responses from WRFs and all of the states. So I just want to take a minute to thank him on that. All right, Jen, I've got another.
We should thank
and-
all the WRFs for responding.
Oh,
We should also
absolutely.
thank the biosolids coordinators who responded. They not only responded, but we spent time on meetings to discuss the data with them, to give them information that Neb was presenting on there. Had a lot of help from everyone out in the community. We'd like to thank everyone, and for those that funded it too.
Thanks. Yes, Jen. All right, we have a question from Laura. Does anyone have an idea whether CECs and PFAS regs are headed towards a program like RCRA? There's really nothing we were looking at in this particular survey, but I don't know. We could talk about that for a while. I'm not sure if you have an answer.
I don't know. I mean, I
It's
don't have my
unknown at
crystal
this
ball to
time.
figure out what's going on, and we're hoping to track what's going on and be able to respond to it of the regulations that we know are going to be of issue coming forward.
And I know EPA has put their intent out there to regulate PFAS under CERCLA and RCRA. And for wastewater treatment facilities, it's critical that we get an exemption for these types of materials that we have to manage every day. So check out the last NEBRA mail for a link to WEF Water Advocates to write to your federal delegation. And the more people that do it, the better for an exemption for water utilities under RCRA and CERCLA.
And a shout out to NACWA on that. I know I just received an email yesterday regarding some of the changes coming up, and they said keep your eye out that EPA, prior to putting the CERCLA designation for the two PFAS, PFO and PFOS, will put it on their website. So they're going to send additional emails out when it goes up on the website first. Really great participation from the community on kind of when to look and where to find information.
It's a great community. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
We have another question is, if 2018 data is considered a baseline, is there another survey planned in the future? Good question. As Jen mentioned, they looked at 2019 data in those two states, Massachusetts and Maine, to see if there were any PFAS related impacts. And I believe you found some in Maine, Jen. I mean, it's pretty common sense that we're going to see an impact there. But this was a huge effort, Jim, and I'm not sure. We are actively talking about ways to keep the data up to date. It's definitely more comprehensive than EPA's ECHO database for a lot of reasons. It's more it's more robust than any other data compilations that I've seen. So yeah, if we could keep that up to date, that would be terrific, but no easy answers to that one. All right, we got some more questions here for you, Jen. I don't know if you can answer this one, but can you speculate on the big increase in solids production in Florida, and if it's related to population or local regulations?
Especially because we didn't focus on that at New EPIC. I was really presenting Janine's data that they got at the national level. But some things that you can look at, and I'm not sure if it's true for the state in Florida, is if there's and they've had additional needs to look at nitrogen and phosphorus. There may be some increase in solids with having to do removal for
Advanced
those.
nutrient removal. Yeah.
Those are some of the things
I would encourage you to check out the Florida page on the biosolidsdata.org site. If you go to the dashboard, it actually shows you 2004 data versus 2018, and there's comments in there, and I'm sure Ned has explained what the big difference is in that decade. So check that out. All right. Here's another question. Will you be doing any proactive outreach to elected officials on the report and the findings? I know at the national level, we're preparing, Ned's working on a manuscript for BioCycle, and we've been doing presentations and articles. And nothing really at the national level, but Jen, I believe you're considering some stuff in the Northeast.
Yeah, I was trying not to talk over you to talk about the national response first. For the Northeast, we picked because we were funded cooperatively through our member states in EPA Region 1 and Region 2. We've drafted a report, which we'll be finalizing. That report is going to be distributed to the New EPIC's commission members, and those include, they're not necessarily elected officials, but include state regulatory agencies. We're also working on providing some information that folks can use with their regulators in each of the states regarding PFAS and biosolids. So although this was a survey and sort of a baseline of information, we are taking it to develop additional materials to use to be able to communicate in at least the Northeast region. And I know as we collaborate with NEBRA, it's definitely information that can be shared beyond that. And I do want to give a shout out to other folks in our region who have created some great communication materials. I know NUIA has, and along with NEBRA, there's also Anthony Druin from New Hampshire DES has created some great outreach material from the Northeast Biosolids Improvement Program. Janine's NEBRA members, I've shared some of their data. There's lots of good information out there.
All right, and now we're just getting some suggestions, which is terrific. Thank you very much. Sheila suggesting it would be helpful to ask specifically for tip fee as separate from haul fee. That's a good distinction.
And I do need to double check it, but I'm pretty sure the cost is just the tipping fees on there. It's not hauling.
Right.
And we do understand that that can be a huge component, if not a larger component than just the cost to dispose of it. And you're really pointing out some great points that we want with these discussions, and perhaps find a way to engage with the community to see if we can get some good summaries of information and costs over time to be able to use that moving forward in the discussions.
Sheila's just saying thanks for gathering all this information. Yeah, capacity is really critical right now in the Northeast, and so at least we have some information that we can use for discussion purposes now.
And we do have a question about where to find the cost for biosolids use or disposal. I know that that slide is something that Ned had created and I've been able to use and jump off from. He's in the process of continually updating information on the biosolids.org data.
Yes, and there's a section where you can download slides like this. I believe the cost data is in there as well. So you should be able to find it on the website. And if you don't, Paula, you can email me, Janine at anybiosolids.org, and I will definitely hook you up. But again, I hope you guys going forward, I don't see any more questions. But I would hope that you could get on biosolidsdata.org and check it out, at least for your state. There's so much information in there. You could spend an hour easily bouncing around and digging into the data. So I hope you can find some uses for it. We're definitely planning to find some uses for it and make it worthwhile, and figure out maybe how to keep it up to date and address some of those other data issues that we've put out there for you.
I think it's a great suggestion to keep updating it moving forward. The difficulty is we're open to suggestions from people. I know it was tough to get funding to be able to drill down and look at this. Also, it's difficult because not all the data is collected in each of the states, and not enough WRFs are responding to be able to come up with a good data set for an entire state. And we kind of used a paper that's been published by Seipel out there to look at the amount of WRFs that they've noted in each of the states and kind of get a sense of the responses that we got and how many are there. And you'll see that in NED's data. You'll see that in the data, the report that I'm pulling together too. It's not an easy task. And if there are other people that have ideas on how to approach it, we're open to hear that so that maybe we can find a way to keep this going.
Yep. Jim is asking if there were concerns identified by if they were ranked in order or not, and I believe they
I'm
were.
pretty sure they were for the national level. I wasn't as focused on the national level, and I gave the top ones for the Northeast in the report. They'll be the top 5, and they are ranked. I have them ranked by in each of the states too. It's a little hard to figure out the ranking on there too, because there's I will disclose that there's a little discretion involved, and I know probably Ned had some and I had some. There were ties in there, and you kind of looked at, you know, what were the highest points, but they were consistent across each of the states. And then and they were consistent nationally with what Ned has on there too. So it's interesting to see kind of that even though we gave them over 20 to look at, we were seeing the same ones pop up over and over, the ones you'd expect to see.
And today we just covered like the state pages on the website, but if you go to the national summary, there's a ton of information there available to read and download. Ned's been busy. So I would encourage you to click on the national summary page too. There is one question about if there's any PFAS and biosolids survey in the planning. And I'm just wondering if that means like concentrations of PFAS and biosolids, or maybe you can just expand on that question a little bit. Okay. So I would just say we have a lot of data on PFAS and biosolids, and the states that are requiring sampling, like Massachusetts, that's online and available. Yep, concentrations and presence. California is also doing that, has a sampling requirement, has a database online where you can see PFAS concentrations and presence in biosolids. So
Michigan has some reports also.
Yeah, so a lot of
I'll
people are doing it.
There's other states that are doing studies. I know Minnesota started their study. That's a lot of what we talk about in the residuals work group. And both Janine and I try to send out resources on that. And I think you've done a great job, Janine, at NEBRA for your NEBRA members. And we cross over sometimes and make sure we share with our different groups, the regulators, and also with NEBRA members, links to those reports as the studies are getting done. There's a study happening in New Hampshire. There was also a USGS study in Massachusetts. And I think the data is going to be posted soon for New Hampshire. There have been studies with information in Vermont also. So if you're on the Vermont DEC website, you can find it. I know there was a study recently in Connecticut, and they're working through their report. And once that gets completed, that'll be available. Unfortunately, I think I'd have to say you right now need to go to each of the different states' websites. And I think Janine's probably pulled some of that together. ITRC has a good summary too.
That's a great
ITRC. If you're looking sort of at the national level, is a great place to go to start looking at that information. Yeah, and as Janine knows, if you start me talking about PFAS and biosolids, we're going to go well past the 1 o'clock hour.
Yeah, but I'll give you I'll put the website for ITRC in the chat in a second there. Yeah. But yeah, so NEBRA was compiling and tracking that information, and on average, biosolids in like in the 10 parts per billion concentrations generally of the PFAS that the regulatory agencies are concerned with. So we kind of know that, and now that a lot of the states are tracking it, we really haven't been keeping up. But I can send you some links. I took down your name, and I'll certainly get you those. So a lot of states are looking at it now. Mm-hmm. All right. I don't see any more questions here, Jen. All right, I'll get that link out. I could provide some links. We have them for NEBRA members. I have on the member page links to the Massachusetts State of the California data Michigan's program. So there's a lot of stuff on there for you, but I'll include some links in the follow-up to this webinar when we send the slide deck out in the recording. So then you guys can go down a rabbit hole when you start looking at this stuff, but it's fun. It's it's important,
Oh,
I
good.
should say, not
Sheila put
fun.
one in there too. Yeah, the ITRC site is great that
Thank you.
we
Yep.
put up there. It's a great starting point if you're looking at information. And also the different members have different communications, like whatever aspect you're looking for, reach out to Janine. I say that, reach out to her, but she usually checks in with me. So if there's something I have too, we make sure that we try to share that with everyone who's asking questions as you start looking at this information. We've really been encouraging people to get involved and see what's happening, get yourself educated so you can support us.
Yeah, and the ITRC website too is my go-to place for the latest in regulations. So they are also tracking soil, groundwater, drinking water, regulatory limits by state, by country, across the globe. So
And
you
it's
could definitely
difficult
get lost.
to track that. So that is the best place to go with that because things are changing sometimes
It's updated
weekly,
as of
sometimes
July. I just
monthly.
looked at it
So,
yesterday.
yeah.
They do a good job keeping it up to date. So NEBRA doesn't have to. All right. Any other questions? All right. If not, I really appreciate all of your attention. I want to thank Jen again for tag teaming with me on this excellent presentation. Thank you to everybody who contributed to this project in any way. It was a huge effort, and I hope you will check it out because it's a wealth of information as well. All right, well, thank you for joining us. Right now I don't have a lunch and learn schedule for September, but in October, you're going to learn about reed bed systems for solids treatment from our NEBRA member at Shelburne Falls, Mass. But check out the events page. The lunch and learns are listed there. I'm always looking for suggestions for future sessions. So if you could send me an email, if there's something specific you want to lunch and learn about, and I'll try and make that happen. All right. Thanks again for attending. Thank you, Jen.
Thanks, everyone.
Happy Friday, everyone, and have a great weekend.